Dear participants, welcome to our session. Today we have three presenters from two were from Italy, one from Turkey. So let me check all the presenters whether they are here or not. The first paper presenter, Leah Ferrari, is she here?
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Very glad to be here. And thank you for organizing and for all the efforts. Thank you.
How is the situation in Italy now?
It's quite good. Now we have a low level of restrictions, so some people can go around in the country and make the best to arrive home and parents and family for Christmas. And then during holidays, probably we will have again some restrictions, but you know, it's not bad like the previous part of the year.
Yeah.
So
the first part of the year, you are right.
It's a little bit better. Yeah.
Nice to hear that. The second presenter, Teresa Maria Sagnorella, is. Are you?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Very nice to meet all of you from the different part of the world. How nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Our third papers presenter, Mehmet Akif Kahraman, İsmail Hakkı Tomar, Ramin Aliyev, Hasan Eşici, Mehmet Şam, Ahmet Karataş ve Yaşar Özbay. I know some of them are here. Who is going to present, Ramin or Mehmet Akif?
Hi, Dr. Bıkmaz. I am here. I'm Mehmet Akif Karaman. I will be presenting.
Okay. So I'm very happy to learn very important aspect of the pandemic. We all know that the social emotional part of our characteristics is very affected by the COVID-19, especially in education side. We really need to improve these skills actually. So all the participants are here. Let's begin to first presenter. The name of the papers is the Teacher Perception of Social Emotional Needs During the Pandemic. Results from the SMILES Erasmus Plus questionnaire. So it's your floor, Leah Ferrari.
Thank you.
I think the technicians will help us. We are waiting. Okay, so here.
Morning and welcome to this presentation that aims to show the preliminary results of a research project that started a few months ago during the pandemic and that is included in the Erasmus Plus project, PS SMILE. After a short theoretical introduction, we will present and discuss with you our preliminary results. I am Leah Ferrari and I am the first speaker. Then I will pass the word to my colleague, Teresa Maria Scaramella. The PS SMILE project is a project that involves 5 partners, Lithuania, that is the coordinator, Italy, Bulgaria, Portugal, and Greece. The main target of this project are educators, mainly teachers and parents, and we aim to support them in developing their social and emotional skills to make them more able to impact their children's development, and especially as concerned their social and emotional skills. The project started on September 2019, and in the first months, we conducted an analysis of the social and emotional education in each of our countries and wrote a national report and a transnational report. This was our baseline that helped us to create a common understanding and start working on intellectual outputs that, as you can see, include developing some methodological materials for teachers to be used with the students and foster students' SEL skills. Set up a training program for teachers in order to make them more ready to work with children on SEL skills. And then, as concerned the technology, we have to develop an app for teachers and also parents to practice their SEL skills, and then to develop an online version of the training program for educators. From a theoretical point of view, we, both for the project, but also for this specific research that we are presenting, we adopted a general, as a general framework, the positive youth development approach. And more specifically, as concern SEL skills, we adopted the Castle model. This model is recognized by the international communities as one of the most important for helping young generation to succeed. And each student is at the center of the model, and social and emotional skills, as you can see, are divided in 5 components. 2 focus on the self, 2 are focused on the social and interpersonal domain, and the last one focus on responsible decision making that is related to problem solving and ethical issues. Of course, near the students, there is his or her life environment that is mainly school and family, but also more in general, the community where he or she is living. More than 20 years of research clearly show that SEL has a great impact on students, have a higher and better academic success, better grades, and adjustment to school environment. Students that benefit of SEL activities show also better quality of life and mental health. And in general, they have more positive youth development. And some research also show that, quite recent, show that attending a SEL program lasts about 4 years later. So this testifies that SEL program make the difference in the students' present and future life. Research also show that SEL skill of teachers are important, not only for themselves, but also for the students, and they impact the students' life and school climate and in general school achievement. And has very recently research show it is important because they can create and build an environment that has a net provide children the best opportunities for a better development. So taking into consideration all these aspects and the fact that we, when we were starting in our project to develop methodological material and training program, the pandemic emerged, we decided to give a voice to the teacher and try to understand what they are thinking about SEL and also how SEL is linked to the critical situation and the school closing that they were experiencing. So we involve 62 primary school teachers in our country with a wide range of experience. And now it's the turn of my colleague.
So to address the issues we were concerned about, we developed the survey that includes both qualitative and quantitative questions. In this study, we will look at the results from 3 of the questions that we addressed. With the first one, we asked teachers to write at least 3 words that came in their mind when they were thinking about socio-emotional learning. Then we used a questionnaire, which was meant to highlight how much they consider themselves able in promoting self-skills. And we used 25 statements addressing the 5 self-skills described by Capital Model. And we used a 5-point scale to collect the answers. The third one, in the next slide, shows how we address the issue related to pandemia. That is, we asked them if and which ones, in their opinion, were possible challenges, efforts, and commitment connected to the pandemia and regarding social-emotional education. We then collected several outcomes, interesting results. First of all, as shown in the next slide, we analyzed the meaning of self in the teacher's view, and we considered separately the answers provided, the 3 words provided, and then globally considered them as a whole. The words were coded by 2 observers separately and then discussed recursively in order to reach the agreement. And at the end, 5 categories emerged that you can see in the table. The most numerous category, as you see, refers to personal mindset. That is to words related, more specifically, tagging emotions, feelings, or values, such as empathy, confidence, or happiness, followed by answers referring to proactive behaviors. There is actions undertaken or to undertake in order to address the others and interact with them. And also these kind of answers increased in frequency throughout the task. A closer look also to the specific words we used shows that teachers gave a specific place to empathy among personal mindset. Empathy is actually the most frequently produced word in general, accounting for almost nearly 20% of the answers, and also is the most frequent word used when referring to personal mindset. And here, this word accounts for more than 47% of the answer. And then in the same table, you see the proactive attitudes and behaviors. Here, the relationship, the idea of the relationship was the most frequent word provided as a first answer. But then throughout the task, the answers spread over a larger set of positive, proactive attitudes and behaviors. In the next slide, you see what they thought about their self-efficacy, beliefs about socio-emotional education. And the attention then focused on the, first of all, on the general degree of self-efficacy, which was quite good in our teachers because most of the answers ranked above the mean score of each day. With the one-way ANOVA, we found significant differences, and more specifically, the post-hoc analysis showed that social awareness scores were higher than self-awareness, self-management, and decision-making. But then in our analysis, we focused on the main dimensions. That is, we contrasted self versus interpersonal dimension and awareness versus management dimension. And what emerged was that interpersonal dimension scored higher than self-dimension and decision-making dimension. But no differences emerged when we compared scores in the awareness dimension. Finally, we addressed the third question, which was related to challenges due to COVID, challenges that most participants actually foresee in their future. And they both related to self as positive personal mindset and actions they expected to be required or to undertake, but also they related to the others domain, the social domain. Here, as you can see, challenges they mentioned referred to several different goals. The actions in particular, they expect to be required to conduct or to perform and deal with both managing children behaviors and emotion, but also with teaching and didactical issues. So in general terms, the results seem to underline the relevance of facilitating reflexive processes that can help teachers find connections between the personal mindset and the interpersonal actions they might be involved in. Also, results underline the relevance of considering empathy and viewing this as a resource for teachers, and also the idea that it's important to support self-efficacy beliefs that teachers have about self and responsible decision making. And finally, it underlines the relevance of promoting an investment of the educational communities on socio-emotional education.
So our take-home message is in line with what Brackett and collaborator said when they discussed the impact of ruler training program that emphasized the importance that all the school system infuse SEL into their activities from the children to the teachers, the parents, and also the community. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Lee Ferrari, for your good presentation and fruitful presentation about the social emotional needs of the teachers. I really know more about the project, and at the end of the session, we have some time to speak about a little bit more about the project actually, and the actual results of your study, especially the self-efficacy and the empathy findings are really grasp my attention actually. So today we have the second presenter here, Teresa Maria Sagregella will present identifying and effectively managing executive load in school activities, a training for primary teachers. The title of her presentation. So the floor is yours, Teresa. Our technical person will help us to show your video. Okay. So
welcome everybody. I'm Teresa Maria Sgaramella, and together with my colleague Margherita Bortoluzzi, we have conducted a study aimed at showing what could be the effect of a training on executive load on several skills and attitudes of teachers dealing with primary school activities. And the first point in which we started is what are executive skills. We mean and refer to supervisory and self-regulatory functions that organize and direct cognitive activity, but also emotional response and overt behavior. These are skills that develop across lifespan, but there's also the possibility to use specific developmental windows to support their development. And there are several skills on this umbrella term. And what we know is that have an impact on everyday life, both in planning, in using information, in realizing consequences and drawing inferences. They are shown to be very important for both academic outcomes and future goal construction, and that they dynamically interplay with contextual experiences in coping with stressors, in engaging in challenges, and achieving well-regulated behavior. But the load that they pose on activities can reveal a determinant or an antecedent of non-adaptive and challenging behaviors. So the barrier towards complex learning goals in educational context, and something that has been suggested as a specific goal of the actions in cognitive behavioral therapy. And we think the teachers and to the role they may have in actively contributing to the positive development, they could be an important aspect to which they should pose their attention, how developing knowledge on what they are and what is their role in the school activities, and also what could be the impact. It's interesting, what could be the impact on their self-efficacy beliefs about how they could effectively identify and manage executive load in school activities. We then involved teachers, 10 females and 6 trains in a short training program on executive skills, which were addressed in a pre and post assessment with either a questionnaire on executive skill knowledge and competencies, and using 3 different activities. We asked them to describe at the beginning of the training, as well as in the possible strategies they may consider to deal with them during the experience, and afterwards, in order to see what changed in the way they address them. The training was focused on for diverse content, dealing then with executive skills and the way they develop on executive load and on the analysis of the impact on the performance. We then introduced this practical tool for conducting executive task analysis and identifying executive load, and then worked together with teachers on managing executive load with effective strategies in cognitive tasks as well as in social interactions. And here you see some examples. The idea is that teachers are used to talk about complexities, but more specifically addressing executive load, we expected to change a series of index. The executive task analysis sheet was organized as you can see here. So the task was identified, the performance we wanted to see at the end of the activity, and then several indexes were used to analyze the activities. That is, describe the steps and the executive skills involved in each step, but also the load in terms of how frequently they were involved, the non-adaptive behavior that can be produced when not dealing effectively with executive load, and the possible strategies to manage and support that. Then there were a series of strategies that were and guidelines that were proposed to teachers in order to support and orient their work to a first level action, that is simplifying and managing the activity in order to make them easier to perform, and then reintroducing the complexities, the load they tried to manage at the beginning and the first level action. Some results. After the training, we realized that there were changes in teachers' knowledge, but also confidence and perception of competence. And as you can see from the low level, the beginning, both in knowledge, in confidence, and in competence, there was a marked increase from the beginning to the end, especially for the competence on the possibility to find strategies that would effectively support them in dealing with executive. And interestingly, when we look at the strategies that we could list at the beginning, baseline, and after working with executive, was strong increases in well evidence increased, while the strategies related to the content addressed during the activities stayed more or less at the same time. So there was a specific impact on executive, the ability of the teachers to deal with executive load in the activities. And this was also evidenced by the number of sequences that they analyzed at the beginning, then they practiced with students in school, and they were learned and executed autonomously or with minimal support by students. And here you see the striking change with respect to the learnings in activities where they simply were exposed to repeated execution. So the message is that it is important to introduce and support the idea of actions, educational actions, training actions with teachers on executive skills and executive load, because this can support access and active participation of students, but also, and more specifically, increase the learning capabilities of students with learning difficulties and enlarge the educational goals. And these can be set and obtained by actively training them on designing school activities and assignments where they effectively mediate not just the complexity of the number of complex elements included, but the specific executive functioning skills that are involved and the loading upon the task. And these are some comments that teachers made at the end of the training. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Maria Sigarella, for your interesting study. We are now time to switch on the third panelist, Mehmet Akif Kahraman. He will present identifying mental health protective factors in individual with a positive COVID-19 history. So the floor is yours, Mehmet Akif.
My name is Dr. Mehmet Akif Kahraman. I am a faculty member at Kilise Aralık University. I am going to present on identifying mental health protective factors in individuals with a positive COVID-19 history. In this presentation, I will be by myself, but there are other researchers I would like to mention about them. İsmail Hakkı Toma, Ramin Aliyev, Hasan Eşici, and Yaşar Özbay, they are faculty members at Hasan Kayyum University. Mehmet Sham and Ahmet Karakush, they are project assistants in this study as well. So this study was actually supported by the Turkish Research Council, like shortly TÜBİTAK. So the purpose of this study was actually to understand, to determine protective factors of individuals who tested positive during COVID-19 pandemic. Why we wanted to actually understand their protective factors? Because we wanted to see under like difficult situations, how people react to these situations, how people's well-being and wellness are affected by these kind of like difficulties. So we actually, based on this purpose, we use the resilience model. Resilience model also includes like protective factors. They could be external and internal. They include also include risk factors. We need to mention about them as well, and the emotions. The protective factor, the resilience also includes emotions based on this model. So the method of this study was actually a qualitative study, and the method we used was the phenomenological design. So the phenomenological design, we aim to actually understand how these people survive during this pandemic. So the participants, when we look at the participants, the research was conducted with the participation of people who tested positive and recovered during the COVID-19. So in this context, we actually interviewed with participants from 4 different groups. So the first group were like they were stayed at home, and followed by health professionals at home, treatment in the normal service. So they got a treatment, but they stayed in the normal service.
Hatta bu arada bir takım sorular gelirse, hocam şu da vardı, şu bunu da ekleyebiliriz gibi katkılar ya da işte şu konuda ne düşünüyorsunuz gibi sorular gelirse çok mutlu olurum diye mutlu olurum. Yani onu söylemek istiyorum.
46 male and 43 female. Participants were from 14 different cities. Their age range was between 18 and 70. And they reported that they had different careers. For example, they were from 32 different career groups. There were also non-working groups, included retirees, students, and housewives. 27 participants were single, 59 were married, and 3 were widowed. So the measurement we use it the interview form for protective factors in the COVID-19 pandemic process. As researchers, we developed this interview form. So in the form, questions were divided into like individual, family, and social, economic protective factors. So here is a sample question, an individual sample question here. So this individual question tried to understand difficulties, their reactions and resources. So based on the results, resilience model, there were like 4 different results we actually detected. So the results showed that especially protective factors, risk factors, positive outputs, and emotions were actually the main themes of resilience model. So when we look at the protective factors, so protective factors divided by 2 teams, they were like internal and external. Participants reported that their biggest protective internal factor was their spirituality. They said under this difficult situation, they opened their hands, they prayed to God, and they asked for help from Allah. They said they had a difficult situation and they were asking help internally from the God. And the second and the third one was hope and optimism mentioned in this team. And when we look at the external factors, the external factor divided by, represented by 3 teams. The first and the most mentioned one was social support. So when we look at the social support, they stated that when they get help from their friends, family members, they felt better, and this was a very good protective factor. So especially the second and the third one was also related to external factors like family ties. They said they understood the value of their family members. And the last one was healthy life choices. They said they were caring of their eating habits and their diet plan. This was interesting, by the way. So another resilience theme was risk factors. So when we look at the risk factors, participants reported 3 main themes like social exclusion, financial problems, educational interrupts. So the biggest risk factor was social exclusion. Here's an interesting thing. If we look at the protective factors, so social support was a protective factor. So sociality could be a risk factor and a protective factor at the same time. So they felt support their friends and they felt good when they saw support from their social environment, they were feeling better. But also they reported they were excluded by their friends, family members, some family members, and relatives. So this was the biggest thing mentioned by participants. Also, they reported that they had some financial problems because they had to stay at home during like the quarantine days, state of emergency. They couldn't go to job. They couldn't make money. Especially like there are some people they work based on like daily wages. You know, they get their money on a daily wages. So especially like the restaurants, they have been closed for a long time. Like barbers, you know, we can say many like shopping areas, malls, all of them closed. And there were people who work in these shopping malls. So it was a big problem for people who work in this area on a daily basis, especially. So educational interrupt, this was another problem, especially for families who got help from distance learning from the Ministry of National Education. So they said, you know, like this was a very, you know, suddenly interrupt, so they could not process at that time. So especially there were like some positive outputs. They stated that during their illness or their quarantine days, they discovered new developmental opportunities. So they said after the quarantine days or after they recovered, they were planning to do new things in their life. They also wanted to strengthen their family relations because when we will see other risk factors, also the emotions. One of the emotions, the biggest emotions was like fear of death. So they understood the value of their family connections. It was valuable. The last one in this area was changing meaning in life. They stated that they were looking life in a different window. So right now they said they know the value from a philosophical perspective. So emotions, like you see here, 4 emotions were mentioned mostly by the participants. The first one was fear, anxiety, and the second one despair. The third one was sadness, and the last one was astonishment. So if you look at the fear and anxiety, of course, these people, they fear out, they were anxious because they felt the fear of death. They were watching the TV news. They were, following social media. They were fearing because they thought that if they get, and they saw some people lost their life. Like they loved ones. They actually lost their loved ones, and the fear of contamination. They were fearing to contaminate this disease or like a virus to their loved ones, their family members, their kids, their husbands, their wives, their brothers and sisters. Fear of not getting better, because corona is, when we talk with these people, is a bad experience. They said even they recovered, the recover period took 3-4 months because they were speeding, also they were coughing a lot, and they had problem, uh, especially when they took breath. Uh, this was the results. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Mehmet Akif. Now we have time to get some question about the presentation. Do you have any question to our presenter, our participant? Would you please write it down to the chat part? I have a question. Maybe I can begin with myself. First question, my first question.
Hi, everyone. My name is...
Okay. So I have a question to Dr. Ferrari. As you mentioned about the project, Erasmus Plus project, I really need more information about the project detailed way. How can you reach, how can you measure the social emotional skills to the parents, from the parents, from the teachers and the students also. So at the end, what will you do? All these information. I know you are comparing the results from the different countries. So what will you expect at the end of the project? What is the benefits of this project in the for the practice actually?
Yeah, of course, it's a quite complex project. So we, in terms of assessment measure, if this is part of the question, we have not yet selected our measures for the assessment, but we will refer to other European projects on SEL, that SEL education, and in specific, there is one project that mainly focus on testing and develop some guidelines on how to measure these competencies in children and in teachers. So they give us some. They give us some instruction and guidelines about the measures that we can use, and there are suggestions both for qualitative and also quantitative measures. So we will refer to this project. I don't remember exactly the name now. Sorry. Maybe my colleague Teresa remember the name.
There are several projects in EU, some of them already finished and so with products available, and some still in progress. One of these is EBE, Osmosis project. What we, as my colleague was saying, what we will do, we will use most of the measures already developed because they have already been tested. And we will add some more because more specifically our project is introducing new dimensions and ways of conducting activities, fostering social-emotional learning with children. Maybe what I can add following this course already started, we have in mind to involve directly students with activities to be conducted in schools by teachers. So we plan to develop a training for teachers in order that they provide these activities in their everyday life at school. And the app we are going to develop, we've already started to develop, will be a mean to reach parents as well as, we hope in the future, all the adults interested in taking care of their own socio-emotional functioning. I don't know if we addressed the question you had in mind.
Yeah, thank you. But the second part of my question was related to the benefits of the comparison of the project results. I mean, the Lithuania, the Portuguese, and Italy are the part of that project. So, what is the positive or negative? I mean, the benefits of the project regarding social emotional learning. How can we use the results of the project? I mean, the implication is very important. So what is your thoughts of the project implication to the area of education?
Certainly, one is to introduce systematically these activities in school in order to follow the development across the years, and not just as an activity that some schools propose to their children, to the students and the teachers. Of course, longitudinal studies will show, as expected from research, an impact on well-being experienced, on participation of all the children in school activities, and academic success, as shown by specific research studies with small numbers of students in specific countries.
Yeah, and maybe another issue is to try to change and expand the culture of the school in general and the school community in relation to SEL skills, because we of course we will work with the schools, with teachers, also parents and children. So one impact could be to really change the idea about SELs and have also them more effective in use some strategies and be more and pay more attention to this issue. So it's not only in terms of research, it's also in terms of changing the way of doing some things at school and also at home in relation to SEL skills. So it's to try to provide meaningful change, you know. So it's a community change.
Yeah, thank you. I saw another question is written from the chat part. The question for Mehmet Akif and his colleagues' papers. For mental health presenter, please tell, did the researchers observe too much belief in God and the participant not taking precautions like social distancing, etc.? Did you observe?
So the thing here is actually like, there are two parts we need to mention. First, before Corona and after Corona. So before Corona, people, like some people, they care about their social distancing. Actually, I don't like to use social distancing. I like to use physical distancing. So people, like some people, they care about this physical distancing. They take their masks, they, you know, like wash their hands, and they're very careful. They don't talk with other people too much, or they don't come with together with them. So here the question, what I understand, so if they believe God, so, you know, like they don't care about anything. Like this was the thing I understand from the question, but no, this was not the part. This was after the Corona, because when this kind of traumatic events happen to people, like people try to find some protective factors in their life and outside. So when we look at the people's support system, like the people we told, they were religious probably. So most of them, they, you know, like use it, you know, praying, or they got some, you know, like religious activities as their support system. But this was not mean, you know, like if they believe God or they pray, so anything will not happen. This was not the case, but this was the case after they got Corona, because there is no certain, you know, like at that time, because we stopped to collect data for like 2-3 months. So there was no vaccination. There is no certain medications for Corona. So they take the medications the doctors gave them, but also, you know, like they try to find some internal support system, like, you know, hope and their family members, or, you know, like spirituality and religious system.
Mm-hmm. Another question to you, Mehmet Akif, the same person She's saying that.
Dr. Bıkmaz, your microphone is muted.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Another question to you. The same participant asked that question again. Any intervention associated with your implication? She's asking actually.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thank you. And actually, I am sorry, it was the missing part in our presentation. They are right. We because of the time, we couldn't touch on that implications, but I would like to mention here. So there will be especially two parts for implications. The first one is the, like authorities, government authorities and people by themselves. The government authorities, for example, let's say for implications like for the financial system, people, they don't have too much things to do. Like if they lost their jobs, what they need to do, like they will find another job, but if there's no job available on the market, what they can do. So the government authorities, as you know, like in many countries, governments supported their citizens, like maybe like United States, they gave $3,000 to the people who lost their jobs or who cannot work. In Turkey, again, like we gave, I believe, 1,000 Turkish lira. So this, like financially, they try to decrease the burden on people's shoulders. Mm-hmm. So this is the government parts they need to do. But in terms of other professionals, such as like mental health providers, if our listener asks, when we look at the TV shows or, people usually talk about like vaccines, doctor talk about vaccines, like if they got vaccines, what will happen to them, or people talk about like, the economical systems, but anybody doesn't talk about the mental health. Anybody doesn't talk about, like the social relationships. When we look the social media, we don't see any advice. So the first implication will be, strengthening the family relationships. So as we saw in our results as well, like family ties, many people, they said, they did not talk with their uncles for 3 or 4 months, but they started to talk with them because their uncles were sick, and they could lose their loved ones. So what they did, they were trying to strengthen their family and social relationships. So this is very important, especially, if professionals like academicians or, mental health professionals talk about this more on social media or on TVs, it will be effective. Because right now, like today, we are in, like homes, we cannot go outside, right? So what we do, we usually, follow social media or watch the TV. So this is important at that times to, give messages like that. And the third one and the last one I will say, so we also work on this like a psychoeducational training program. We prepare based on these actually findings. We plan to, prepare such a psychosocial book for pandemics. Like we have psychosocial books for earthquakes. We have psychosocial books for traumatic events, but we don't have a psychosocial book for epidemics and pandemics. Even every 20 years, the world, like faced with a big pandemic, we don't have it. So this is our the third implication we want to do. And I would like to also mention, this is an ongoing study. We have not finished yet. Thank you very much for the questions as well.
Thank you, Mehmet Akif. I have a question to Teresa Maria, Dr. Teresa Maria. Thank you for your presentation about executive skills. How can you explain the progress of the skills within a short period of time? what is the context? I mean, do you have any comment on the context effect on the acquisition of the skills? What is your thoughts? What is your observation? How come they improve their skills within a short period of time?
Well, actually, there are two levels for this analysis. The first is related to teachers. They had a specific training on what these skills are. And what we measured actually was not with the direct instrument, the content, the knowledge, specific knowledge on executive functioning. What we measured was the perception of the changes in their attitudes, in their confidence, in dealing with complex tasks, which many teachers have when in a class they have children with difficulties, with learning difficulties of different sorts. And this was not only related to the training, because we didn't measure these changes at the end of the training, that is after 4 days, because the training was short and intensive and carried out in 1 week. We measured after they applied the knowledge they developed, the tool they practiced with children. So I think that the combination of these two things, that is working on teachers with teachers on their own perception, on their knowledge, their attitudes, and soon just after that, involving them in using the knowledge they developed, the tool they practiced in their everyday activity with children, and seeing the change in the way they address the difficulties. I mean, I think that was the main aspect that supported this kind of result.
Thank you so much. I saw another question. I think I can ask this question to all presenters. When you call it physical distancing, what would you like to say on the lack of social and emotional support due to the lack of social visit during the lockdown? So you can say something on this question. So how can we organize or prepare us to socially welfare? Would you please, someone want to answer this question? Physical distancing, lack of social and emotional support, what we can do to improve our social skills in general, I mean, in educational setting, maybe we can just focusing on this. Whoever wants to answer this question, he or she will begin. Okay, so, I saw Ferrari maybe say something about it.
Yeah, I think that it's a very complex issue. When you are experiencing closure and restriction, I believe that especially if we are thinking about youth, we have to increase our collaboration as educators with parents. And I think that it's important not only work with children as educators, as teachers, for example, but also work with parents and increase the collaboration and the discussion that we can have with them. If possible, also provide parent training or also online parent training or webinars, short sessions that can help them to give them some
emotional support.
Yes, emotional support and also some skills in order to face new issue with children, because they are impacted in many ways, and some of course are very near to mental health, are other near more with social aspects and relational aspects. So I think that increase the effectiveness of the net that is around children is one of the aspects that we can take into consideration. Yeah.
Good point. Thank you. Any comments, Teresa?
I may add something that comes from a challenge that is specifically felt as important in the world of the disability and then of students with disability in school. Mm-hmm. There's a reflection ongoing actually on how to provide support, given that we, in the next future, sooner or later, for a short or long time, it's possible that we have to deal with these kind of problems. And one of the reflections in international setting is that we should promote the use of distance learning with programs that that are more ecological, in the sense that they refer to everyday life. So it's a way to take everyday life into this more distant and more neutral setting, as is provided by the distance learning. So the main questions are what kind of content we use in these activities, how we take the everyday life into the activities, and then supporting a sense of belonging and being a community even when we're distant. So we are all asked to work on the content that we provide and in finding a way, more multisensorial, I would say, way of providing the activities in the online setting, so that we stimulate a more comprehensive experience, taking them the more social aspect into the learning.
Okay, thank you for all valuable thoughts about the social emotional skills. So my colleagues just warned me to show the time. So we came to the end. Thank you for your participation and a very delightful and fruitful speech. And I have to close this session. Thank you for all your contribution to this session.